the training that I went through with mindset. And it's, mindset was never one of these big things I had when I was a kid.
Sure.
I call myself a recovering pessimist.
Okay.
Because everything would go wrong. I'd always pick the wrong line. It was me, it was my, it was that. And not until I heard like the definition or the explanation of what mindset was, I'm like, oh, okay. Your perspective, your perception of the world, and how that essentially drives your decisions and your choices and the actions, and how if we have a negative view of the world, essentially, where everything's going to go wrong, whether it's with our health, with our relationships, with our careers, if we feel that in like the unconscious, untapped part of our brain, like the monkey brain, if you will, then that's going to lead us to the actions that we take sustainably. Now, we might have short-term success in our health. For example, if we have these goals for our health, or goals for our business, or goals for our relationships, but we tend to fall back to the level of our perception or our essentially mindset that we have about that situation, about our health, if that's been the issue. And the one thing I really wanted to dive into with that summit was like what mindset isn't. It's not just thinking positive, because if you don't actually believe what you're thinking, and if you have like a more powerful voice that you can't even hear in the back of your head telling you that you're not good enough, that you might try and take action, take powerful action, but if you have this unconscious driver, your mindset in the back is on a fixed, negative, unhelpful, non-serving level, then you're never going to be able to achieve the goals that you want for your health, relationships, wealth, career, whatever it is. And that's why I wanted to have that like a array of presenters and speakers talking about those different aspects of life, of health, and how mindset plays a role in it, and giving actual solutions and methods and systems that they've used with themselves and also their patients and or clients to help them have these not just one-time breakthroughs, because it's not just, again, that's what mindset is not as well. It's not just a one-time thing. It's not just something that happens. It's, we can start with the epiphany in the aha moment, but the work comes after you have that moment.
Right. Oh man, there's so many threads on that I want to pull on. So it's what I love. I love that the vision, kind of not what is mindset, what isn't mindset. I think it's a really good way to approach problems or things, because I even had that struggle. I've been part of mindset groups for a bit, and still it's like to have a clear definition of what it is. It's a challenging thing, and you could talk to 100 different people and you might get 100 different definitions. And I think what it is that I realize, it's kind of like fitness. Like there's not just one definition, because it's a living, breathing thing. Like if you ask a 15-year-old what love is, it's going to be much different than when he turns 18, when maybe he has like his first love, and then 25 and then 35 and then 50. Like, what does that mean? So none of them are wrong. It's just the definition evolves often. So I think that's a really important point with trying to understand mindset, because it's not just, oh, this is the definition of mindset. It's like, no, what isn't it? Okay, that's a different approach to go. And so I thought that's a really good way of trying to approach and solve one of these big problems.
Yeah, and mindset can either serve you or not serve you. Mindset isn't just the positive part of it, but the mindset, essentially the definition that I have for it is your mindset is what actually drives your actions, habits, and behaviors. And we've learned that from our mentor, Brian Grasso, who was on the summit, and that's where I learned a lot of this from. And that was another impetus, another inspiration for me to want to do this summit, is to bring this system, like this eliminate your limits mindset system, to even more people, because it's a simple and consistent method in practice to do. And if you do it, you will achieve sustainable success.
Yes.
You just will. And it's not just because I'm on your podcast here, Mike, but one of my favorite, and you just exemplified it right there with that analogy of the definition of like a 15-year-old, somebody who was 15 years old with love, how that changes as he evolves. And that's why I loved yours. And I'm not just saying this because I was thinking about this. I still think about your talk on this summit because I loved your analogies, especially because yours was, strength, right? The strength connection in health. And what I loved was the highway of strength, because, putting that in perspective is if you're out driving on a highway, it doesn't matter how fast you're going, you're still making progress. Some days you have to be in the slow lane. Some days you're feeling great. Okay, I'm going to be in the passing lane. And I'm going full bore. I'm going for it. And then sometimes you're in the middle lane where it's like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm not my best. I'm not my worst, but at least but yeah, that's one that has stuck with me because of that analogy. And that's why I love that. And I love, your stuff because you give great examples and analogies that can relate and people can identify with.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It took a while to really get that down and then realize it, but it is, regardless of what lane you're taking and what's your path, you're still moving forward. And I think that's, and from learning that, like that took a while for me, like in, 23, 24, when I first got into this business 15 years ago, it was, fitness was about aesthetics. Business was about, hustle and making money, and then it's like you go through these stages of stuff and then you start to peel back the layers, be like, oh, maybe there's more to this, maybe there's more to this. People who have spiritual journeys do the same thing. It's like sometimes you need to go down these paths to work with. And it is funny, like, probably you see this so much in your practice, like with people who have chronic pain and you think like, oh, this is just the way it is, or my shoulder hurts, so it has to be my shoulder, when in reality, it might be stemming from something else going on. It might be your mind. And I know, just being a patient before, that's a tough pill to swallow when you're a patient with, chronic neck pain and you think it's a postural thing, but it's actually other things that's going on. So what I loved about the Mindset Matters is if you go into it with that open mind, it's like you're going to learn something about, like, you're not looking for maybe a possible epiphany that's going to change everything, but you're finding new analogies, you're gaining new wisdom. And I think the more you practice that and the more you learn that, you're going to find your path.